Welcome. Today we are putting a true cinematic and cultural landmark under the microscope, the 1993 film Jurassic Park. And for this discussion, we're not really interested in the details of the plot on Isla Nublar.
Right.
You know the story, the jeeps, the storm, the chaos. Our mission here is to analyze the history, the casting decisions, the revolutionary technology that made it all possible, and of course, the enduring legacy that made this movie a global phenomenon, a real turning point.
It's so vital to step back and look at the film's architecture.
Yeah.
I mean, when you consider Jurassic Park, it's so easy to just be consumed by the magnificent dinosaurs.
Of course.
But the technical and logistical blueprint built around those animals, that is what fundamentally redefined Hollywood filmmaking.
It was more than just a hit.
Oh, absolutely. This was more than a box office success. It was an industrial event that redefined what was technically and commercially possible in visual effects, in sound design. It just set a new standard for how blockbusters had to be made from that point on.
Okay, so let's unpack this from the very beginning. We have to start with the origins, because the journey from a concept to a finalized film was almost as chaotic as, well, a theme park security failure.
It really was. And it began surprisingly early.
Before the book, even.
Way before. The novel, by Michael Crichton, was actually conceived as a screenplay back in the 1980s, long before it was ever a book.
So when did it become the novel we know?
Well, Crichton finally submitted the finished manuscript to his publisher in May 1990. And at that exact moment, Steven Spielberg was meeting with him to discuss the future TV series ER.
What a coincidence.
A huge one. During that meeting, Crichton mentioned he had the galleys for his new novel. Spielberg managed to get a copy, was instantly captivated, and he committed to directing the film adaptation right then and there.
And he was not the only one in the running. I mean, we're talking about one of the most intense, high-stakes bidding wars of 1990.
And this was happening before the book even officially hit the shelves.
Which is wild. Crichton, though, was apparently tired of the long bidding process he'd seen before.
Yeah, this earlier work like Congo. So he initially offered the rights at a fixed price, about $1.5 million. He wasn't trying to maximize the money. His main concern was just making sure the film would actually get made by a major director he trusted.
But the agents saw the potential.
The Creative Artists Agency saw the tremendous potential, and they encouraged the bidding war anyway. And the contenders were powerful. Warner Bros. Was backing Tim Burton.
Interesting.
Columbia Pictures had Richard Donner. 20th Century Fox was paired with Joe Dante. But Universal, they were driven by the chance to secure Spielberg.
So they won.
They won the rights. They committed the $1.5 million for the novel, plus an additional $500,000 paid directly to Crichton to adapt his own book into a screenplay.
I think the most talked about alternative director, though, has to be James Cameron.
Absolutely. Cameron tried desperately to purchase the rights. He famously found out he was beaten by Spielberg by just a few hours.
And he said his version would have been very different.
Very different. When he discussed it years later, Cameron revealed that his Jurassic Park would have been much darker. He said nastier, kind of comparable in tone to his own film Aliens.
So more of a straightforward horror movie with a lot more graphic violence.
Precisely. His vision involved much more graphic dinosaur attacks. But the amazing thing is, he graciously admitted that after seeing Spielberg's finished film, he realized Spielberg had made the right choice.
The more family-friendly approach.
Exactly. Spielberg made a film that could be enjoyed by families and children, and that really elevated it beyond some niche sci-fi horror piece. It was crucial to its massive cultural footprint.
So it's clear Spielberg's vision for the tone secured the project, but the journey to the final script was anything but smooth.
Not at all. Crichton wrote that preliminary script as part of his deal, but he admitted he was profoundly exhausted with the subject matter.
He was done with it.
He told Spielberg he was so tired of the whole area and sick of his own characters. Malcolm, Grant, the dinosaurs, by the time he finished. He basically told Spielberg to hire someone else immediately to refine it.
And this is where Malia Scotch-Marmot was brought in.
That's right. And she started her work from scratch. She just tossed Crichton's draft aside. Her focus was not on the dinosaurs, but on refining the human element. Specifically that core theme, the fatal flaw of trying to control nature.
How did she approach that?
She wanted to visualize it. She included scenes of, jungle vegetation visibly creeping into the unfinished visitor center to show nature's relentless pushback against human hubris.
What's truly surprising about her initial work, though, are the changes she proposed to the characters.
Huge changes.
She actually cut Ian Malcolm entirely.
She did. She incorporated his characteristics, the chaotician, the philosopher, into Alan Grant, who she felt was a little underdeveloped in the novel.
Malcolm eventually came back, of course.
He did. But the biggest and most philosophically important character overhaul was John Hammond. And this really speaks volumes about Spielberg's personal connection to the project.
Because in the book, Hammond is just a villain.
He's ruthless, manipulative, purely greedy. But Spielberg, the ultimate showman, he related deeply to Hammond's obsession with spectacle, with creating something wonderful.
So he rewrote him.
Led to the character being rewritten entirely as this sympathetic, optimistic, grandfatherly figure that Richard Attenborough played so beautifully.
That character change is so critical, isn't it? A ruthless villain doesn't let you feel the heartbreak of the park's failure. By making Hammond sympathetic, the film transforms the disaster from a story about greed into a tragedy of, overreaching ambition and idealism.
It absolutely maintains this central cautionary message, but it ensures you still have some emotional connection to the man who created the dream.
Yeah.
If he had been the novel's villain, the emotional stakes would have been entirely different.
And we also see those subtler character shifts elsewhere. They made Grant and Sattler a couple for the film.
Right, which added a subtle romantic tension. Although Laura Dern later noted that the 20-year age difference between her and Sam Neill felt completely appropriate for the early 90s, but it was something they both reflected upon later in the context of modern cinema.
The modifications to the grandchildren, Tim and Lex, were also very functional.
Highly functional. Their ages were swapped specifically to accommodate the casting of Joseph Mazzello as Tim, the younger brother.
And Lex geeked Tim's computer skills.
Crucially, yes.
Yeah.
Lex inherited Tim's specific interest in computers and systems, and that was a narrative necessity. They needed Lex to be the one who could interact with the park's security systems during that climactic kitchen sequence.
Her skills were key to the resolution, so every character choice, even down to which kid knows coding, was serving the set pieces.
Exactly. And David Cope eventually took over for the final drafts after Spielberg was dissatisfied with some of Scotch Marmot's versions.
And he was given a lot of freedom.
Remarkable creative latitude. But he was mandated to include two major set pieces from the novel. The iconic T-Rex attack on the tour vehicles and that tense sequence with the raptors in the kitchen.
Cup then had the difficult job of taking pages of scientific jargon, how they clone the dinosaurs with mosquito blood and frog DNA, and making it digestible for an audience.
That exposition needed to be conveyed quickly and, entertainingly.
And Spielberg provided the perfect solution. He was inspired by a 1957 educational special, Hemo the Magnificent.
Right, he devised an animated segment, a simple cartoon, to quickly explain the cloning process.
And Cup named the cartoon narrator Mr. DNA.
After Spielberg jokingly referred to the character as such, it's an incredibly efficient piece of filmmaking that avoids heavy, dry dialogue. It just respects your time.
It definitely works. Cup also rationalized some of the villainy. He made the critical decision to merge the novel's PR chief, Ed Regis, with the lawyer, Donald Gennaro.
He did. He transferred Regis's notably cowardly traits to Gennaro, whose eventual death being eaten on the toilet by the T-Rex was certainly one of the novel's more memorable scenes that made it through.
A darkly humorous fate for the character embodying corporate cowardice.
For sure.
So, with the script locked down, they face the next huge hurdle. How do you afford revolutionary CGI and still staff a whole movie? This led to Spielberg's unconventional casting mandate.
That's the tension that defined the whole production budget. Spielberg estimated the cost of the effects would require most of the budget, which was initially around $56 to $63 million.
So to manage that, he deliberately tried to avoid movie stars.
That's what he said, yeah. Actors who would charge outrageous prices. Instead, he aimed for good, solid, slightly less-known actors to manage the finances and place the spectacle squarely on the dinosaurs themselves.
That was a huge risk in 1993, wasn't it? I mean, blockbusters were traditionally anchored by huge names like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Tom Cruise.
It was a massive financial risk. Spielberg was essentially saying the special effects are the headliners. But it paid off because the effects delivered.
And for the lead role of Alan Grant, Kurt Russell and Richard Dreyfuss were considered, but they were too expensive.
Harrison Ford and Tim Robbins both turned down the role before it eventually landed with Sam Neill, who recalled the whole process happening real quick.
On the other side, Laura Dern was cast as Ellie Sattler. She was in a similar position, right? An established, talented actor, but not yet demanding that top-tier salary.
Exactly. Robin Wright and Juliette Binoche had both turned down the role before Dern accepted.
And the casting of Ian Malcolm, the chaotician, that's legendary.
It really is. Jim Carrey actually auditioned for it.
I can't even imagine that.
But Jeff Goldblum was deemed perfect for the role. And notably, Keep only included Malcolm in the final script at Spielberg's insistence after Goldblum's dynamic audition just made the case for the character's retention.
Goldblum has such a unique, quirky presence. He embodies the spirit of chaos theory almost physically. His performance is the necessary counterpoint to Grant's rigid scientific views.
And we can't forget two key supporting roles. Richard Attenborough, who played John Hammond, hadn't acted in 14 years.
He was hesitant to return.
Very hesitant. But Spielberg insisted. He famously told him, "I can't see anyone else playing it but you." And that combination, an industry legend returning and Spielberg's personal insistence, it really solidified that sympathetic grandfather image they were building for Hammond.
The casting process also had its fun moments. Ariana Richards, who played Lex, was cast after Spielberg saw her audition tape.
Her scream, right?
Her scream was so utterly convincing it reportedly woke his sleeping wife off the couch.
And rounding out the key team members was Samuel L. Jackson, cast as Ray Arnold, the park's chief engineer. Jackson received the role after a suggestion from Whoopi Goldberg.
And this was just before his massive rise to superstardom with films like Pulp Fiction. But while the casting process yielded some great success stories and funny anecdotes, it wasn't a universally positive experience for everyone involved. We have to note the experience of B.D. Wong, who played Dr. Henry Wu.
That's right. Wong expressed dissatisfaction that his role was so drastically reduced compared to the novel, where Wu is a much more important and more sinister character.
The one responsible for all the genetic engineering.
Right. And Wong later publicly attributed the diminishing of his character's role to racism, noting that the only major Asian character was essentially relegated to a cameo explaining the DNA process.
It's a sobering reminder that not every experience on a landmark blockbuster set is equitable or positive.
It is.
So those early production phases truly laid the groundwork. But the technical leap is where this film became an industry legend and transformed Hollywood forever. The logistical difficulty of what they attempted was just unprecedented.
Absolutely. The technical execution demanded a whole new philosophy. Spielberg established a core rule for the entire crew. He banned the words monster and creature, insisted that they refer to the animals only as animals. This was essential to grounding the dinosaurs in the heightened reality that production designer Rick Carter was trying to achieve. They weren't fantasy beings. They were meant to be real flesh and blood animals.
Carter made a point of avoiding the shallow, commercialized look that you see in theme parks.
He wanted the park to feel like it was still under construction, avoiding that typical glossy finish. Even the iconic vehicles were part of this philosophy. They used 7 customized Ford Explorers, not the Toyota Land Cruisers from the novel modified by ILM and the veteran customizer George Barris.
And the modification on the Explorers was just genius. They needed the tour vehicles to appear driverless for the shots inside the park.
So they engineered the cars to be remotely controlled, with the actual drivers hidden in the trunk compartments, operating the vehicles with front-mounted cameras.
It sounds like something out of a spy movie, but it was purely practical filmmaking magic.
It was.
The effects development, though, tells the true story of how Hollywood shifted. Initially, the plan relied heavily on practical effects. They were going to use Phil Tippett's Go Motion,
A very sophisticated form of stop-motion animation that adds motion blur to make the movement smoother.
And Tippett was an industry veteran. He was consulted even before the novel was published, so his work was central to the early vision.
But everything changed. It changed because of the pioneering spirit of the animators at Industrial Light and Magic, ILM. An animator named Steve Williams secretly built a virtual T-Rex skeleton.
Just on his own time.
Right. He scanned schematics from the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology and animated a walk cycle. The goal was just to test the limits of CGI, which is only expected to handle things like the dinosaur stampede scene in wide shots.
But when Spielberg, effects supervisor Dennis Muren, and the producers saw that photorealistic animation, this massive dinosaur walking and breathing digitally, they were just stunned.
Completely stunned. They were so impressed that they scrapped the Go Motion plan entirely for the full-body dinosaur shots. And they pivoted the focus entirely to CGI.
And that pivot led to Phil Tippett's now famous remark during a production meeting.
I think I'm extinct.
Right. And Spielberg, recognizing the meta-humor and the profound shift the film was undergoing, loved the line so much he immediately incorporated it into the final script.
Spoken by Jeff Goldblum's character, Ian Malcolm, during the initial park tour, it's a true, unexpected moment of cinematic self-awareness.
It's so important to stress, though, that despite this massive shift to digital, the balance between CGI and physical effects was meticulously maintained.
Very carefully.
The final 127-minute film only has 15 minutes of total dinosaur screen time.
And that small window is precisely split.
Yeah?
9 minutes of incredibly detailed animatronics and just 6 minutes of CGI. They achieved photorealism by using CGI sparingly and effectively, maximizing its impact.
And that 9 minutes of animatronics showcases the unparalleled mastery of Stan Winston's studio. They built life-size dinosaurs,
Including the massive Tyrannosaurus Rex animatronic, which was the largest creature Winston's team had ever constructed. It stood 20 feet tall, 40 feet long, and weighed 9,000 pounds.
The logistical complexity of using that gigantic hydraulic puppet was almost comical. The sheer weight and size made it basically immobile.
The crew actually had to move the entire set around the dinosaur, rather than trying to move the animatronic itself. That just shows the dedication to physical presence over flexibility.
And the practical challenges were immense, particularly during that famous nighttime T-Rex attack sequence.
Wedding scene.
Because the scene was shot during a simulated storm with massive amounts of rain, the foam rubber skin of the animatronic began absorbing the water, adding all this unplanned weight.
Started shaking and quivering because the hydraulics were overloaded. Crew members had to frantically dry the enormous model with chamois between takes just to keep it operational.
I also love the anecdote about the unintended detail that made it into the film. During one rehearsal or attack on a tour vehicle, the animatronic hit the plexiglass roof with such force that one of its teeth popped out.
And Spielberg just kept filming.
He kept shooting, resulting in the T-Rex having a visible missing tooth in the final film.
That detail, unintentional as it was, adds to the realism of the animal. It feels like a real beast that breaks its tools.
Speaking of the digital side, ILM created 52 CGI shots, including the pioneering use of digital face replacement for the first time ever in a film.
In the film's climax, that intense fight between the T-Rex and the raptors in the visitor center was entirely digital. The set simply could not accommodate the weight and movement of the massive animatronic.
The technology used to create those digital movements is fascinating, too. They didn't just animate from scratch, right?
No, they needed a way to translate the physical understanding of movement that Tippett's traditional animators possessed into this new digital realm.
And that's where the dinosaur input devices, or DIDs, came in.
A crucial technological bridge. GE-80s were essentially small, physical armatures with motion encoders. Tippett's studio artists could manipulate these wireframe models almost like stop-motion puppets.
So their movements were captured.
The inputs captured their subtle, trained movements and translated them into wireframe models. ILM animators then took that digital input and smoothed it out, cleaning up the movement and adding the final texture and lighting. It was a perfect fusion of old-school physical artistry and cutting-edge digital technology.
That collaboration must have been intense, and considering the sheer processing power required for these images in 1993, the rendering process must have taken forever.
Oh, it was excruciatingly slow by today's standards. They were using workstations that seem ancient now. To render a single frame 1/24th of a second of the detailed T-Rex in the rain required 6 hours of processing time.
6 hours for one frame.
It took weeks just to render short sequences, which speaks to the incredible time management and pressure the ILM team was under.
And while the visuals are groundbreaking, the sound design is just as revolutionary, requiring Spielberg to take an unusual step to ensure audiences experience the film as intended.
He was so focused on the auditory experience that he personally funded the creation of DTS digital theater systems for digital surround sound.
To challenge Dolby.
Exactly. He believed the quality of the sound was crucial to the immersion, and he wanted to ensure that audiences would hear the film exactly the way it was intended to be heard.
The challenge for sound designer Gary Rydstrom was enormous. Paleontologists had no idea what dinosaurs truly sounded like. It's an open question even now.
So he essentially had to start from scratch. He committed to building an entire library of organic sounds using only animal vocalizations recorded specifically for the film. He avoided any pre-existing stock effects.
And the recipes he created are legendary and wonderfully strange, like the gentle giant, the Brachiosaurus.
Its calls were a mix of whale songs, cow noises, and donkey calls. They even created the sound of the Brachiosaurus sneezing, by combining the sound of a fire hydrant being opened and a whale's blowhole.
It's a bizarre symphony of nature. I mean, the T-Rex roar sounds so real and visceral, but I can't believe it was actually a combination of a baby elephant squealing and a male koala grunting for the softer sounds.
The T-Rex noise profile was the most composite. They added alligator, crocodile, and lion noises for the sheer raw power.
And the footsteps, the ones that made the water ripple.
That wasn't a sound effect library. Rydstrom achieved that by physically cutting down large redwood trees and crashing them to the ground, capturing that genuine deep impact sound.
And what about the hyper-intelligent, terrifying velociraptors? They sound so intensely menacing.
They are the most complex. Their aggressive hisses and screams are a combination of dolphin screams, walruses bellowing, geese hissing, even African crane mating calls.
But there's something else in there, too.
The most surprising detail is that Rydstrom used the sound of tortoises mating and then added a distorted human rasp to the raptor sounds. That human rasp is the only human voice used in the film's dinosaur vocalizations.
Which adds an unsettling, almost too intelligent quality to their calls. I think we need to pause and just appreciate the sheer logistical difficulty of this production in the context of Spielberg's wider work. He was simultaneously filming Schindler's List in Poland during Jurassic Park's lengthy post-production.
He described that period as a bipolar experience, an extraordinary challenge. He was in Poland dealing with the profound moral and human weight of the Holocaust narrative, and then he would transition to Hollywood, monitoring the editing, visual effects, and sound design for his giant dinosaur picture.
How did he even manage the communication? This was before widespread internet collaboration.
He monitored everything via satellite and encrypted fiber optic cable from Poland. He held teleconferences with his crew and his editor, Michael Kahn, who was also in Poland, 4 times a week to manage the minutiae of the CGI and sound.
Unbelievable.
Spielberg estimated that 40% of the entire post-production process for Jurassic Park was handled through this unprecedented high-tech, long-distance arrangement.
That level of remote coordination decades ago just illustrates his profound commitment to ensuring the technical quality was perfect, even while he was immersed in a dramatically different project. The fact that he finished Jurassic Park ahead of schedule and under budget is a testament to his organization.
It is. Now, despite the film's veneer of scientific authority, it did take significant creative liberties in design, even while it reflected the real-world scientific shift known as the dinosaur renaissance.
It was important for updating the public's perception of dinosaurs.
Absolutely. It portrayed them as warm-blooded, active, intelligent, and genetically related to birds, rather than the slow, sluggish lizards of older cinema.
But those intentional modifications for dramatic effect are where the entertainment factor took over.
Exactly. The Dilophosaurus, for instance. The actual animal was much larger, but the filmmakers made it significantly smaller to avoid confusing it with the raptors.
And the frill and the venom spitting.
Entirely fictitious additions designed purely for cinematic flair and scare value.
And the velociraptor itself is an example of creative adaptation that has confused the public ever since.
Oh, for sure. The film's large, aggressive raptors were actually based on the Deinonychus genus, a related but much larger animal. Crichton chose the name Velociraptor because he simply thought it sounded more dramatic and menacing.
But the timing of a real-world discovery was incredible.
It was fascinating. Shortly before the film's release, the Euporaptor was discovered. And this newly discovered animal was even larger than the raptors depicted in the film.
Which ironically validated Crichton's decision to use a larger-than-life version, even if he used the wrong name.
It reveals a kind of unexpected foresight in the fictional size of his creatures.
The scientific and technical groundwork was laid, setting the stage for the monumental cultural moment and financial dominance that followed. The preparation for this release was just as massive as the T-Rex itself.
The marketing was a juggernaut. It signaled a new era of global promotion. Universal took that lengthy pre-production period to plan an extensive $65 million marketing campaign.
Which is a staggering figure when you consider the film's production budget was only slightly higher at $63 million.
They essentially doubled the cost of the movie just to promote it.
That campaign included licensing deals with over 100 companies for 1,000 products. It just saturated the market with everything from video games to McDonald's dino-sized meals.
And the film's visual identity became instantly iconic. The logo, created by Sandy Cholera, was based directly on the skeletal diagram of the T-Rex drawn by Henry Fairfield Osborn in 1917.
The one from the book cover.
Right. That striking black and red design became a badge recognizable worldwide, creating instant brand recognition before audiences even knew the plot.
It was also a competitive release, marketed heavily against its primary summer competitor, Last Action Hero.
That contrast is so important for understanding the cultural moment. Last Action Hero was expensive and relied on an old formula, a massive star delivering self-aware action.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right, but Jurassic Park was marketed as a spectacle of possibility, emphasizing the realism of the dinosaurs over the charisma of the human stars. And when Last Action Hero struggled and Jurassic Park broke records, it became a clear signpost that audiences were prioritizing technical spectacle and vision over traditional movie star power.
And the film's tagline, "An adventure 65 million years in the making," was a joke Spielberg made on set.
About the genuine ancient mosquito preserved in amber that they used for John Hammond's walking stick. It's fantastic how a casual on-set comment became the official advertising hook for a billion-dollar property.
And the financial results just speak for themselves. Jurassic Park premiered in June 1993 and became an immediate smash hit, grossing over $914 million worldwide in its initial run.
It surpassed Spielberg's own E.T. to become the highest-grossing film of all time, holding that record until James Cameron's Titanic was released in 1997.
The pace of its domestic box office was unprecedented, hitting $100 million in a record 9 days. And internationally, the success was historic.
It was the first film ever to gross $500 million overseas. It set opening records in numerous countries like the UK, Germany, Japan, Australia.
And its financial endurance proved to be remarkable decades later, when it was re-released in 3D for its 20th anniversary in 2013.
Using the same company, Stereo D, that had successfully converted Titanic.
It returned to the box office with phenomenal success, proving its enduring appeal.
That 2013 re-release pushed the film past a major milestone. Jurassic Park became the oldest film in history, and only the 17th film overall at that time, to surpass $1 billion in ticket sales worldwide.
Even today, it remains among the highest-grossing films of all time, and is still the highest-grossing film directed solely by Steven Spielberg.
Critically, the reaction was largely focused on its technical mastery, as you'd expect. It received widespread acclaim, especially for its sound design, visual effects, and action sequences.
But there was some critical pushback on the narrative side, a sense that the technical achievement may be papered over weaker character work.
Yes. Critics like Peter Travers noted that the human characters felt like dry bones compared to the dynamic, photorealistic dinosaurs. Which points back to our earlier discussion. Spielberg prioritized the spectacle and the theme over deep character exposition.
But the critical response wasn't universally negative about the characters. There was acknowledgement of Alan Grant's quiet yet significant arc.
Absolutely. Many critics focus on the effectiveness of Grant's transition, his journey from being hostile and kind of indifferent toward children to actively protecting Hammond's grandchildren. That emotional journey grounded the chaos and provided the necessary human core.
And the technical excellence was officially confirmed by the Academy, winning all 3 Oscars it was nominated for: Best Sound Effects Editing, Best Sound, and Best Visual Effects.
In 2018, its cultural significance was cemented when it was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress.
And this brings us to its lasting legacy, which begins with its foundational, revolutionary impact on Hollywood filmmaking.
This film is widely regarded as the ultimate landmark that shaped visual effects in modern cinema. Film historian Tom Schoen even said its innovation was a revolution in movies as profound as the coming of sound in 1927.
That's a huge statement.
It is. It redefined the technological language of the industry almost overnight.
The digital success realized by ILM immediately inspired other major creators.
George Lucas, who owned ILM, saw the potential of his own company's success and finally began serious work on the Star Wars prequel trilogy, knowing that the technology was now mature enough to realize his vision.
And Peter Jackson was similarly affected. He was inspired to re-explore his childhood love of fantasy films, seeing how digital tech could bring impossible creatures and worlds to life.
This directly led him down the path to creating the Lord of the Rings trilogy and later King Kong. Jurassic Park provided the proof of concept that launched several mega franchises.
The entire visual effects industry restructured around the technology the film introduced.
Many special effects companies quickly transitioned entirely to CGI. And Stan Winston, the master of physical animatronics, he saw the writing on the wall and went on to co-found the special effects company Digital Domain with IBM and James Cameron. Jurassic Park essentially dictated the future direction of blockbuster movie making.
Beyond Hollywood, the film had a highly significant impact on science and public interest, giving rise to what is now known as the Jurassic Park generation.
This is a remarkable cultural effect. The film is directly credited with inspiring countless young people who saw it as children to pursue careers in paleontology and related fields. They wanted to discover the next raptor, the next T-Rex.
And this surge of interest, driven by cinematic enthusiasm, led to increased funding for the field and a subsequent boom in new dinosaur discoveries worldwide.
Universal and Amblin even institutionalized this support, starting the Jurassic Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated specifically to funding paleontological research.
It also moved the concept of de-extinction from academic speculation into the public consciousness. The film popularized the idea that extinction might not be permanent.
And that concept continues to resonate with modern ventures decades later. You can look at Colossal Biosciences, which is currently using fragmented DNA techniques to actively try and bring back extinct species like the woolly mammoth and the dodo.
The director of the upcoming film Jurassic World Rebirth even visited their labs, calling it the real Jurassic Park.
It just proves that the film's central hypothetical premise, the possibility of bringing back the past, remains a profound scientific and philosophical fascination, inspiring real-world efforts.
And of course, the cultural footprint extends well beyond science and cinema itself. The film established a massive multimedia franchise that continues today, spanning 6 sequels, including the upcoming Jurassic World Rebirth in 2025, numerous video games, and comic books.
The film's success led directly to the creation of major theme park attractions designed to recreate the fictional park's chaos. Jurassic Park, the ride at Universal Studios Hollywood, and an entire dedicated section at Universal Islands of Adventure. The park truly became real, just in a carefully controlled environment.
And one of the most unexpected influences came from the world of professional sports. The Toronto Raptors NBA team, founded in 1995, was named directly as a result of the film's massive global popularity.
It shows how deeply the Raptor image had embedded itself in the public mind.
It really does. It's proof that the brand and the imager transcended the film itself almost instantly. When we look at this cinematic event outside of its plot, the story becomes a potent case study in technological innovation, masterful global marketing, and cultural endurance.
It proved what was possible, not just in terms of pixels and sound, but in terms of shaping public imagination.
The scale of that achievement is truly hard to grasp today, where CGI is so commonplace. But in 1993, the blend of Stan Winston's massive physical artistry and ILM's digital innovation created a seamless, terrifying reality that audiences had never experienced before.
What's truly fascinating here, and what remains a lasting influence, is that powerful intersection of science and entertainment. By pioneering photorealistic digital effects, Jurassic Park convinced the world that its vision of what dinosaurs looked like, active, bird-related, intelligent, with a specific scaly skin texture, was real.
Right.
And in doing so, it created a dominant, permanent public perception of these animals that science is still struggling to update decades later, especially regarding features like feathers, which we now know were far more prevalent.
Yeah.
So what does this massive cultural victory tell us about the power of cinematic realism over academic truth? And which one ultimately shapes our collective understanding of the deep past?
Thanks for listening.